Hello everyone. Welcome to this More to Life webinar in which we are absolutely delighted to be joined by Berenice Smith. Hi Berenice.
Hello, Heather. Hello, everyone.
Now Berenice is a creative designer who uses her talents and skills to affect social change. She's going to give insights into her website, Walk in Our Shoes, by explaining how it came about, what it aims to do, and how this creative practice has helped her too. Now, we will begin this webinar tonight with Berenice's presentation, and then we'll move on to a short Q&A session. Any questions that you may have for her can be typed in as we go, but we will come back to them to revisit them once she's finished. Now, to type in your questions, simply hover your cursor down at the bottom of your screen and you will see a toolbar appear. Click on Q&A and type them in, but please select the anonymous function to prevent any personal data being disclosed, as this session will be recorded and watched by others later. Okay, Berenice, I'm really looking forward to this tonight. So I think I'm ready to hand you over to Berenice, who's going to talk to you about walking our shoes. Okay, have fun, Berenice.
Thank you, Heather. Hi, everybody. I'm going to start the presentation once there's Heather. She's just left my screen. Hi, Heather. With sharing my screen with you. So if you bear with me 1 second, I'm just going to sort this out. We had a few funny issues with the lovely PowerPoint earlier on this afternoon, so we're just going to give it a go now and I'll get this sorted out for you. Okay. Here we go. Right. That's better. There we are. So, walk in our shoes. Before I started doing all of this webinar, I want to just explain a bit about why I've put on there how picking up crayons and helping and getting creative helped my mental health, and why crayons. Well, crayons are cheap. When I was a kid, I used to get loads of pencils. You know, I don't know if you remember, great big felt tip pens in these big packs that you used to get when you were a kid. I've got loads of those. You just take all the bits out the middle and then use the fibre bits inside to get best colouring techniques. And poster paints, anything like that is what I used to get as a kid. And crayons these days, you can get eco brands, and they're a really, really good way just to start creating. And I kind of want to explain a bit more about that. Each day I try and draw a diary. So I'm just going to lift this file up here. So some diaries, I think you can see those like that. Ooh, there. So diaries that I keep, I try and draw in them most days. And the reason I do that is because I lost my creative path. I've been through IVF, and just before all of that, I qualified. Weirdly, I'm a designer by trade, but I went off and I did a 6-week course in making stained glass windows, as one does. And I loved it. It was brilliant. And I went on and I qualified in the City and Guilds. And I used to draw a lot and write a lot onto the glass and fire it in a kiln. And you use things like lead. This is going to probably rattle a lot, but I'm going to show you this, and it probably won't be very visible. I might put a picture up on Insta or something later, but it's got words written onto that, some letters on it. I hope you can see in the little screen. Anyway, I'll put a picture up later. But I started to use calligraphy. I've always done calligraphy work, and put it onto glass, put it into the kiln, enjoyed myself. And then we started to have all these fertility issues. And I thought, oh God, I better not use lead anymore. Lead's toxic. Oh, candles, the bits they put in the flux, oh, toxic. Okay, and I stopped. I completely stopped doing anything creative like that. And I found comfort in writing. I was actually madly doing, so during my journey of infertility, I've done an Open University degree in English literature, and I studied for a master's. We'll come to that in a minute. Because I lost myself in something else. I thought, if this bit can start doing stuff and my head's all right, then it doesn't matter what's going on down below. And I still do this thing where I go like that a lot and divide everything up. But once I got to the end of the journey and the end of IVF, I thought, I need to do something, but everything felt overwhelming. So I went back to crayons and I went back to sheets of paper. And then gradually I progressed to getting some pencils and colour, to going into urban sketching. So I do quite a lot of that too. And of course, drawing in my diary. So what I wanted just to start off this webinar by saying is that start small. you know, do a little bit of knitting. Go and do lots of squares and give them to a rescue for dogs. There are loads of rescues out there, like little squares of blankets, knitted blankets for their dogs over winter. Do a little bit of crocheting, do something, a bit of baking, anything. Go out and, I don't know, build something, you know, go out and drill some holes in a wall, obviously, you know, with health and safety in mind, but go and do something. Even if it's small, it's just something that you can do. So that's kind of where I'm going with my creativity. I've shown you my diary. But before we get too far into this, you're probably wondering who the dog is. She's not here. She's downstairs on the sofa, but she's Molly. And she arrived in our house as a rescue, aged 10 months, after I'd been through 6 rounds of IVF. 5 rounds of IVF failed for us. The last one worked, but I miscarried. I've also suffered natural recurrent miscarriages as well, and I'm not a mother. I started walking our shoes after I was made redundant. So I've been through all of this IVF, this fertility treatment, and 400 people in the publisher that I worked for, including me, were all made redundant. And at that point, we were still hopeful we might use the last embryo that we had in storage, or we might go for donor. But of course, we have private IVF, which is why the Scream for IVF and all the other campaigns about IVF on the NHS are so important to me, because we were in that horrible position where we had to fund our own treatment. And it's affected lots of areas of our life, our house, our doing stuff in our home, our kitchen, decorating, garden, everything. At the time I was made redundant, I went freelance. So I design books, I design branding, communications material. I've helped quite a lot of authors go through self-publishing, lots of different things that I do. So I'm doing that. I thought that would be a good way to do it. And in fact, ironically, freelance for my former employer, but there we go. And I got an interview for a job in London on a really hot July day, and I'd already done the train commute for 4 years. And I got offered the job, and I thought, oh, I don't know, it's a design manager for a big publisher. I thought it'd be fabulous, but do I want to go to London on the train? Do I really want to do this again? And the following day, I went into the university here in Cambridge, and I was offered a place on their master's course in graphic design and typography. And I was stunned, because my worth, or my value in myself, because of this and doing that and not drawing and other, I thought I had no value. I thought I'd lost my complete direction as a designer. So to be offered a place on the spot was just amazing. And I just said, yes, I'll take it. I want to do this. So I got thrown into a master's degree. At the same time, Molly arrived. We went to the rescue shelter. I fell in love with this particularly manky Labrador lurcher cross that she is, who is as good as gold in the light of my life. And through her, I've met lots of other friends, and we go to training classes, and she's brilliant fun. So that's why Molly's on there. That's why I talk about crayons. So enough of that. Let's go back to the beginning. So, yay, this works. I can use PowerPoint, it's amazing. I've never done that before. So this article here is Susanna Moore. So Susanna Moore is a mum, she's a journalist, she writes for The Guardian in their comment is free section and other things. And this is one of the quotes, and I'm going to let you read through that as I witter on. Now, I go back to this article time and time and time again, because it formed an idea in my head that there could be bridging the gap between those who are parents, those who are child-free, happily child-free, and those who are childless. Because at the time I got to the end of my IVF journey, before I started the Masters, I had all those comments, and I still do get them, that you will probably get. No matter where we come from in our childless journey, whether it's by circumstance or whether it's because of failed infertility treatment, whatever that might be, you and I will hear the, oh, just adopt. One of my favourite ones is from someone that I know, who said to me, well, children aren't all they're cracked up to be. I don't know, God's way. It's probably for the best. Is it really? I didn't think so anyway. But they hurt and they continue to do so. So when I read this, I thought, oh, there's someone who's a parent who gets it, who understands. So on the master's course, we had this module, which was all about bringing together people. And it's a lot to do with social design. So using design to change certain situations and to give a voice to minorities. And well, here I am, I'm one of a great big minority, as we all know. Moore actually ends her quote, this one here, to say that it's not just happening for women either. All kinds of people may be unhappy or ambivalent about their childlessness, but few find spaces in which to express it. Now, how amazing is it that someone who's a parent actually got that and wrote that? I think that's quite bloody brilliant, really. And that's it. That was kind of the bit that made me think, well, where is a safe space? You know, is it Facebook? Well, Facebook wasn't really a big thing when I'd, you know, with the time that I was doing the master's course. And I only knew one group, and that was Jodie and Gateway Women, which ironically I had found through The Guardian and an article that she wrote in The Guardian prior to Susanna Moore writing this one. Anyway, I have 2 Facebook accounts. I'm going to openly confess that now. One for people where I might be triggered, and the other is entirely for my friends who are childless and those who I kind of know my narrative, or at least listen to my narrative and understand that there are certain things that actually I don't want to know about so much. And they're respectful of the fact that I have a wall and this is my wall and I own it. But Twitter is so open as well. I found that during the Childless Hour chat that I used to run, that actually largely it was okay, but I'd often get people from different areas and people who are child-free trying to join in as well. So Twitter feels very open sometimes. It's great for some conversations, but not perhaps for the type of support that we all need. So I wanted to use this module on collaboration and social design for childlessness, and luckily my fantastic lecturer agreed. So thank you, Will. So I set up a set of workshops, which was harder than I thought because people don't want to talk about it. We're all worried about people's opinions and being judged. So I went public myself and outed myself, as one does, at the university, and said, look, this is me, this is my story, I'd like your help. I also was very grateful to Jodie for actually being able to talk to people in Gateway Women. And I also wanted to just thank somebody else who was a bit unexpected perhaps for some of you, and that is a friend of mine, Sue, who has 2 wonderful and amazing daughters. I'm not welling up at this point. I promise not to do that, but she's amazing. She gave me hope and always gives me hope that there's a conversation, and has always been supportive. She'll always share and she'll comment and she'll like. And there are people who I work with on a daily basis who do the same, and we learn from each other. There's a bit more about them in something else I'm doing this week as well. So there are people out there who have helped me, who are parents, who I consult about walking our shoes and check that actually it's right, because it's not a parent bashing site. I don't think it's right that we get bashed as children, as childlessness. And I don't think it's right we do it the other way. I try and find a medium in the middle that means we learn from each other. But what I found is that empathy is incredibly rare. And all of this research, and the research document is actually this here. It's on the website, Walking Our Shoes. You can download it, and it's full of interesting stats and bits and bobs and things like that. So I had this model in mind, and I thought, oh, this is all going to work. Making sure that doesn't fall off over there. My desk all is covered in stuff. And at the time I thought, oh, Walking Our Shoes, it'll be a book. It didn't have a name at that point, but what this thing was, it was going to be a book. And I had the idea of it being beautifully printed with overlays and things with different stories all layering up. And that might still happen. I love print. I design for print. I love books. So it could still be a thing. But what changed it to a website was that BB Lynch, who I absolutely think is wonderful, I've met her, she's fabulous, but she wrote an article in the same paper, in The Guardian, at the same time, which is entitled, and you can go and look this up, but it's "Do Not Brand Me a Failure, I'm a Survivor. All unhappily childless people are." And that headline went, wow, that's me. And her article was spot on. Then I did that big thing that never do, scrolled down to the comments, and it broke my heart, because I thought that's not right. Where's that space, that safe space? You know, this is a person who is a fantastic journalist who gets all this aggro for saying what she said, and that really hurt. So I thought, that's just not right. What can we do? Thing is, ironically, 2 years later, I had the same experience in the exact same paper, and also in my local newspaper, where they didn't moderate the comments. And I know from being in that position, it's very, very hurtful, and it does affect your mental health, and it stops you speaking out. And people, of course, shut down. They don't want to talk about it anymore. And whilst Facebook is great, these are groups on Facebook who are for our community. It's not outward facing. So that's why this book became a website, because it can be reactive. So this is the website. Ta-da! So you got there in the end. We're on slide 3, and here's the website. So this is the front page of Walk in Our Shoes. It's responsive. It's very easy to share a story. It's not instant, because the stories come to me first, and they only come to me. Nobody else sees them at all. And they go onto the website. So you have to kind of wait for me a bit. But I do check it regularly, I promise. As part of the master's degree, then it's a design piece. There is quite a lot to say about it. I could bore you forever about the construction of it and whatnot, but safe to say that there is a design story behind this too. So the reason that it's the font on the front, the yellow font, Walk in Our Shoes, it's a font called Plume, just in case you wanted to know. Prior to that, it was Brie, which is another font that you can actually get on Google Fonts. And the reason that I chose these fonts is mostly also because of the shaping and the negative spaces, and they are easy to read, but it's not too gender either way. And that's the other thing as well, is it has to be a gender neutral site. It's got to be welcoming for everybody. No pinks, no cultural sensitivities, nothing that's going to offend anybody or put it into a bracket, if you like, as far as its appearance goes. And the yellow is important. Now, I'm going to bore you with some colour facts, kids. Okay. In the mid-19th century, yellow was seen as being a bit racy as a colour. So in 1895, Oscar Wilde was arrested for gross indecency. And the newspaper report at the time said, Oscar Wilde arrested carrying yellow book. Well, what happened was, in that time, publishers would put information, dodgy or adult or racy information, pressed between yellow covers. So it was things that you weren't sort of meant to read, but if you walked around calling something yellow, people think you were edgy, out there, a bit kind of rebellious. And that's what it was. It was a rebellion against Victorian values. So you can kind of see the tie-in here with what I'm trying to do with Walk in Our Shoes, is it's trying to rebel against what society might think of childlessness. It's also a colour that's been used for marginalised groups. So from the Middle Ages, when people who were ill or diseased or seen as being a minority had to wear yellow, and of course, really sadly and movingly so, through the Second World War with the Jewish yellow star. So it's a colour that has a great deal of power as well, and it's also the colour of gold. People aspire to gold, and they aspire, it's alchemy. So there's a reason for the yellow as well, just in case anyone wanted to know. So why feet? Oh, look, there's Molly and her feet as well there. That's doing a middle. There's a website somewhere, Absolute Dogs, on Facebook, that teaches you how to do middle. Molly and I like middle because it gets good photos for Walk in Our Shoes. So feet selfies came before the name. I knew that people would probably not want to show their faces. People do. There's some fantastic sites around. there's lots of things. Mum's Not the Word is a fantastic photography site that I recommend everyone looks at, and shows women in the fetal position, naked. Incredibly brave, but I didn't think that that would be appropriate, or hands or faces, for this particular site. I thought feet would be easy. You simply get your phone and you can click and you can take a picture of your shoes and you can dress your feet up in any way you want. And actually that came before the name. So that's why feet. And they're quite personal as well, what you take a picture of. Robert, who was one of the most popular stories about loneliness, wanted his feet covered in mud, or his boots covered in mud, because he loves walking. And we've also shared amputee Anita's story as well, which is incredibly moving too. So this is Walk in Our Shoes. What makes it different is that it's completely private. So when the form is filled in, I don't know, unless you put it in, what your email address is, and you absolutely don't have to. You can use any name that you like as well. Several people do use pseudonyms, which is absolutely fine. I'm quite sure that a lot of people don't necessarily, maybe they're blogging with their partner about something, but they actually want to sit and go, about something, or just everything gets a little bit kind of mixed up, or they have their own narrative and their own story that they want to share away from a joint blog. Other people just don't want to blog. You know, Robert, who I mentioned before, isn't particularly into the internet. He is now, but he wasn't when we interviewed him, and he just wanted to share his story to somebody and hope that it would inspire someone. And in fact, Robert's story is on the other side of my screen. So the main screen on the right there, you can see, on the left rather, as I'm looking at it, it's the Walk in Our Shoes homepage. And the way that you get to the stories is you just click on the photograph, and behind each photograph, you can read the story. And Robert's story is particularly moving. So here is how you submit the story. Lots of people haven't really shared their story at the moment. I know from my point of view, and my story is on there, that when I was going through treatment and trying to have a child, the bit I hated about, two things that really were upsetting to me. The first one was that I was a part of a Facebook group and there was 10 of us, and only 2 of us at the end didn't conceive. But I remember going down about 4 in the morning with my last IVF cycle and telling them that I was expecting, and then having to tell them that actually I wasn't anymore. And that's devastating. And the other part is, of course, that you don't necessarily want to write about something you haven't got. That's really difficult to do. And it reminds me of when I was looking for support and going into, I think it's Fertility Friends as one of the big sites that I remember at the time, and actually reading through people's signatures to see if anybody else had the same number of cycles as me but actually got pregnant. And then as I got further and further down the cycles, trying to find someone who'd not got pregnant. And then of course I knew, oh, that means I've got to go into the bit that was moving on, that section moving on, that everyone just, you go around the outside of and think, I don't want to go in that bit because I'll find the bad news, and I will find people in there whose hearts have been broken, and have to look at their grief that was inevitably going to come up and hit me, in the way that we all know that perhaps with, you know, our pets and with our parents and with our families, we know at some point there's going to be some grief that hits you. But with childlessness, you don't know that grief's going to hit you, and you don't know how it's going to hit you, and you don't know when, and you don't know where, and that's really quite painful. So absolutely, in terms of Walk in Our Shoes, lots of people take an awful lot of time to be able to share their story, and that's makes the stories on there and the people that do it, it means the world to me that someone's actually done that. I'm always moved by them. Every time I get something through, I'm just stunned that someone bothered to do that and taken the time to do that. It means an absolute world to me. We have 56 on there now, which I'm just amazed by and terribly moved by. I also know that when I went to Fertility Fest last year, this isn't part of what I was going to tell you, but I'm going to just tell you it anyway. We did the a pecha kucha, so we had to stand up and talk a bit about what we did, and I stood up for me and for my lovely friend Steph and World Childless Week, and I was so proud to do that for her. And I got to the end and I thought everyone's going to be going up to Steph and going like, oh, World Childless Week, and people coming up to me and going, well, Walk in Our Shoes is brilliant. I was like, oh, it means a lot to me, I read it all the time. And I was like, really? You know, and I didn't think about that. I never thought that people would. I'm a tiny, tiny little part of the internet, and no one's going to bother to read it, because I don't tend to push it very hard, not as much as I should do anyway. So I'm always very grateful for that. And there are testimonials as well on the website too, so you can read what other people have put. One of my favourite ones is someone said, I read the invitation for contributions. I began to write my story. It's a defining point in my life and my grief in wanting to move on. I read the story over and over again if it was somebody else's, and I cried and cried and cried until one day I read it and I didn't cry. And the whole experience has been very cathartic. Without the project and Berenice's vision, who knows how long it would have been for me to have read my own story, and I will be forever grateful. I know this person because they sent it to me in person, and she's one of my friends that I met, oh God, years and years and years ago. And I hope that if she is watching this, or she sees this on the catch-up, she'll know that I'm really grateful for her words, because at the time when it just started, I needed a bit of faith as well that I was doing the right thing. So, a manifesto. We have a manifesto. So this this webinar prompted me to reveal the manifesto. And again, I will pop it up somewhere on the internet on Walk in Our Shoes and explain a bit more about it now, very, very briefly. So Simon Sinek, who does Start With Why. So it's basically around sort of business owners and marketing owners. And he gives the example of, in this viral thing, I think it'd be fair to say, the Start With Why, about American car manufacturers who used a mallet to fix doors onto their car. Japanese manufacturers made sure that all the parts fitted, so they didn't need a mallet. That would have been good if I'd have got the words out in the right order, but you get the gist. And the idea is that if something has researched enough and has a good grounding, then it will work and it will do what it needs to do. So it's an out there kind of suggestion, but one of the things I would say to anybody who's thinking about doing something in this community is test it, research it, think about it, but don't be afraid of doing it, but just start with the why. Why are you going to do this? What's the reason? If it's for your ego, it won't work. If it's because you want to help people, you've got a damn good chance of doing it. And if it's about collaboration, I also think it works as well, because what I've found is our community is a small one, even though it's worldwide. And together we can be so amazing together. So start with why. Go and look it up if you get a minute. Although it's businessy, it does actually work. But this is the Walk in Our Shoes manifesto, or our why. I say our why because my husband helps me with this. And he's on the World Childless Week site because he's a champion. So you can go and find out about him there. But he's awesome and he's great, and he allowed me to adopt my dog. So he wins in that sense. So creative practices. So I wanted to just explain a little bit about the things that I do that have helped me with my grief. None of you have to do these things. There's some drawings and stuff on the side as well, which are things I've done at Life Drawing and bits and bobs like that. But none of them particularly good, but I'm quite proud of the window. That's lead, and I was dead proud of that. They've moved and took the window with them, so I can't cycle past the house anymore. So urban sketching, you can find loads of groups on Facebook. I also love meditation. Meditation is one of the biggest life changes that I have ever had. I also do a little bit of yoga. That's thanks to Leslie Pine. And she's lovely. I met her at Fertility Fest and we're in communication regularly. And I know that you've seen her on one of the webinars for More to Life. If you haven't, go and look it up. Daily journals, as I've talked about. The other thing is just do it. You know, sometimes we're afraid because we lack nerve, or something may have maybe we've been told some point we're daft, or maybe we feel we're not worthy of doing something, but just go and do it. You know, get some paper, go and collaborate with somebody if you're uncertain. You know, Steph and I collaborate a lot, as some of you know, on World Childless Week, and that invigorates invigorates me. I kind of think, oh, I actually thought of that. That's amazing, and it's been lovely to do that. And I like to collaborate with anybody in the community and help them with ideas. So find someone that you think you can trust. Go and get some envelopes. Go and buy some lovely envelopes. If you think there's something you want to submit to, there's something great out there and you've got an idea, buy some brilliant envelopes and go and do it. Just send it off, do it. And trust as well. You know, I've read somewhere that faith is theoretical and trust is based on experience. So trust that your experience means something. If nothing else, of all of this dreadful kind of crappy state of childlessness, trust is one of the things that you can have in yourself, along with the faith to do something better. What I like to think about is list some situations where you felt you didn't trust yourself, and then remember that actually, yeah, you got out of them, you got through them, you're here, you're right now. And get geeky. So I swapped out mother. So curiosity is the creator of invention, not the mother of invention. Who needs that? Use your freedom to gain knowledge. Go to the library, go to a secondhand bookshop, find a book about something you've always wanted to know about. I've got this amazing book at the moment. It's a kid's book all about marine life because I love the pictures. Oh, that's great. I love it. No one's going to judge me. Who cares? So I'm finding out loads of interesting stuff about fish and plankton and other weird things. But anyway, why not? So I'd like to say that all of that is making me better. But I'm going to be completely frank with you and say that not always. I have bad days. I have some epically bad days. This Christmas, I had a WhatsApp with a newborn baby, my baby's first Christmas card, 3 pregnancy announcements in the end, just popped on email. And that's hard. Because even though I tried to explain, at least to one person, that actually I'd really rather not do this, I'd rather not have this, I still got them anyway. It was like, well, you're the same as everybody else. No, well, no, I'm not. You know, and then the kind of reasoning was, well, people forget. Well, okay, but how loud have I got to shout, you know? So we do get bad days. 2 years ago, I wanted to leave this life. Only 2 years ago. Luckily, Molly was around and she pretty much saved me just by being there. And I thought, I can't leave this dog. I genuinely thought that my husband would be better off without me. I thought everybody would be better off without me. What's the point of all of this? I hit a really, really big low. I have good friends now, and that's the difference. I have a community that I can turn to, that I trust. I have some amazing people that I've met in my life through childlessness, because of childlessness, that I really hope will be friends for life. That I can go to places like Fertility Fest and go into London. I can just say, is anyone around for a coffee? And I can meet people. I have people here where I live that are good friends of mine too, who have been through the same situation. And actually, by sharing my story and being honest about it, I've actually gained more friends, because it's all for the honesty and saying, actually, this happened, it's crap. And also recognising as well that actually it's pretty sometimes hard work to be a mum too. I know, but it can be. But it can also be an opportunity to say, well, actually, it's quite hard for me too, and these are the reasons why. And to actually have that conversation. But of course, it goes down to trust and who it is that you want to trust that story to as well. I think that's really, really important. But again, I wanted to be completely honest and say, actually, I've had issues and I've had problems. And they've only been very recent. So what next? Well, there you go. There's a slide here that tells you a little bit about it and what I want to do next. But what's important to me is that walking my shoes is not inward facing, it's outward facing, so that we talk to people outside the community. I've done some picture coaches, I've talked to business groups, And I've been quite open about my story with trainers and people that hold events, so that they're not kind of focusing on parent narratives and are thinking about people who don't have children. I'd like to get more talks into a wider arena. I think that's really important, so that actually it's one of the reasons why it's not says walk in our shoes, childless and infertility or anything like that, or not walk in a childless journey. It's deliberately lost that because I want people just to stumble across it and go, oh, look, some pictures and some feet. What the hell's that about? Because it surprises them. Because if I did that, it would only stick with a certain group of people, you, me, and the people perhaps watching this. Hopefully there's other people watching this who are not in the same position and learning. And I hope that in time more people will see this video. But the idea is that it's outward facing so that we all learn something from each other. So I'm going to share one last slide with you. And this is kind of my sort of essential even, there you go, reads and stuff like that. So things that I love and things that inspire me, which you may or may not want to do. And again, I've got some links that I can share with Heather for other articles I've mentioned here. But I also wanted to put a little list of all the people who are inspirations in our community, people you can go to. There's books as well. I love the big issue. I Wonder I haven't got I Wonder up here. I wanted to bring it with me and I left it somewhere else in the house. But Mariam Banjays is a fantastic artist who just does the most amazing drawings. Pema Chandran is a Buddhist teacher. She's got some lovely practices. She's a mum, but she's got some fantastic things. The Design Trust, I use their blog, their planning tools all the time. I absolutely love them. Visual Research is an amazing work that inspired a lot of the thinking behind Walk in Our Shoes. It's an essential piece of the master's degree training, and there's heaps of other books I've got for that too, but that's one of my favourites. Show Your Work by Austin Kleon, epic book. If you've got something creative you want to do and you want to get it out there, then that's the book you should go for. Tiny Buddha, Keeps Me Calm. Secret Lives of Colour by I can't remember the first name of the lady, but her surname is St. Clair. I love that book. It's the book I wish I'd written. I'm so flipping jealous that she did it and I didn't, but I love it. And lots of inspirational art as well. Lots of things about social design as well. Candy Chang is a fabulous illustrator that I love, and The Signs for the Homeless is a very inspiring piece that you can find if you Google it. So they're all my things. That is me, all talked out. I've got to somehow rescue myself from this by doing that, and I can hand you back to the lovely Heather, I hope. There's Heather.
Hello, thank you very much. You can hear me, can't you?
I can hear you, yes.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that. That was really, really enjoyable, and I do hope that well, I'm sure that you've inspired many of us to help you get your goal of 100 feet by 2020.
I know, I can.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? If we could, you know, if some of us could play a part in that. But I do have a question about that. Yeah. Let me just find it. So it's not a writing competition, is it? When people post their stories, you're not looking for perfect grammar or because one of the things about childlessness or going through any fertility journey is that you can lose your sense of self-worth that you mentioned, which means that you think that nobody would want to hear your story. And so having the confidence to actually put it out there is a big thing. So you start to be self-critical about grammar, or that doesn't sound right, or people won't understand what I mean. But you honestly, you will accept a story and take it for what it is, genuinely heartfelt story, and the way in which it's been told.
Absolutely. I kind of want to share very briefly something with you that when I did my Open University degree, I was my third IVF cycle and it failed. And about a month or two after that, I found I was pregnant and I miscarried. And the day after, I think it was the day after, I had to go to an Open University, like a day school. and you have to go to them. There's 2 a year for the course I was doing, creative writing. And of course, it's like the law of sod, really, isn't it? That I ended up sitting next to the proud new grandparent. I think they're worse than parents. Anyway, so I was sitting there, and I literally like a robot. I was like a kind of like a pale, unthinking robot. I can't really describe what it was like, but I had nothing to contribute, nothing to say. And the tutor, who is a brilliant published author, just young fiction, Rhiannon Ivory is her name. And I sat there for the morning, just like this sort of, I don't know, limp sort of fish, I suppose. And she came over, she said, are you all right? And I sort of, no, not really. Said sort of roughly what happened. And she just said, right, doesn't matter if it's not what the assignment is, write something, just write. So I will mark it for what it is, just write something. If you think that will help you, write it. So I just wrote something, and the thing was a TMA for a tutor marked assignment, sorry, I got used to the OU lingo, it's still in my head after all these years, is that actually you are kind of like, you have certain things you have to sort of fulfill and you have to do them. And so I just wrote, and I can't even remember what the story was. I've got them somewhere on the laptop somewhere. And she marked it, and I wrote for an entire year, actually, on that whole creative writing module. It was an English literature and creative writing degree that I had. And I just wrote just stuff all around IVF and about childlessness. And then in the second advanced year, I met, a lady called Karen. She's Marianne Keene's sister-in-law. And she was my lecturer for that. And she was just like, yeah, come on, get angry. You know, get the anger out, so swearing. So in my mind, actually, anything goes. You know, because I know that actually, if that's how people function, and I always thought I was a visual learner, and I'm very visual and I draw, and I had to stop myself drawing when I was doing my writing degree. I wanted to draw everything out and said, no, I've got to write words because that's what they mark you on, not your doodles. And I had to find a way to get all that emotion out without drawing it out, and that's quite difficult. But actually, once it happened, it was quite cathartic. It isn't for everybody. Walk in our shoes, really, in some ways I've thought maybe it should have like a doodles kind of bit, so actually you don't have you have a feet photo, or someone can draw a feet photo, and then you can have some doodles behind it, you know, or some art or something. But that would kind of ruin its narrative structure. But it's a possibility of where it could go in the future, because everybody has a different way of expressing themselves. But honestly, swearing's allowed, you know, no punctuation. I'm not entirely sure about text speak because I don't quite understand that. But anything goes. I really don't mind. It hasn't got to be perfect. It really, really hasn't. And if people want me to look at it and just go, look, actually, could you just go through it and make sure it's sensible? I'll do that too. I don't mind. But it only ever is seen by me, never anybody else, until it's published. And anyone can go in and email me and say, look, actually, my life's changed or something's happened. I don't want it on there anymore. Take it off. Just like that, it'll go. It's fine. It's not a problem.
Lovely. And we've got another question on here. Okay, really good question. How long or short do the stories need to be?
Anything you like. Doesn't matter. Usually, you know, if it can be like a couple of paragraphs, some on there are really, really short. I'm trying to remember the ones that are really short, but if you have looked through the site, there's some that are only literally just a bit to say, I've seen the site, I like it, almost like a testimonial, I suppose, but a little bit about their narrative and their story, so it doesn't always fall into the testimonial side. And some are really, really, really long. We've got reams of it. I kind of would say really in that kind of geeky, dull kind of like, oh, well, you know, as a website, it's so many words. And I would say there's probably about, I don't know, 800 to 1,000 words. It's as much as anyone would want to scroll on their phone. But that's not what Walk in Our Shoes is. It's not a kind of exploration in web tech. It's about people wanting to share their stories. So actually, anything that you like, really.
And it is a wonderful forum for people to find their voice, tell their story. But what I really find with the website is I lose myself in it
People
because I click from one to the other.
they do. It's odd because I put so much bits onto it that often I will go into something and I will see something in someone's story that I'd not spotted before and think, oh, there's a blog post in that, or I will know someone who can answer something like that. And that's the other thing I just wanted to say, is that I absolutely welcome guest blog posts. Anyone's watching this and goes like, oh, actually I don't want to do a story, but actually I've got an idea in mind that might be a good article for Walking Their Shoes, and by all means come along. I'm more than happy to have people contribute to it. It's analytic. I'm really geeky about analytics, as the World Childless Week crew will tell you. I'm like, oh, it's this much people have, and actually the analytics on Walking Our Shoes are really healthy as well, and you can see that people spend lots of time reading stuff as well. I don't know who people are reading it, by the way. The analytics don't tell me anything like that, but I can see that people have spent this much time on that story. The one that people have spent the most time reading has been Robert and his loneliness story. That's been the one that everyone's just spent hours on. He's very flattered, and it's very lovely to know that too.
Okay, some more questions.
Okay.
When you express yourself in any way, it is perfect for that moment in time, and that's what matters. Isn't that lovely?
I think that's just such a lovely thing to say.
Yeah.
It's nice. I think that's it. It's when you're in the right mood and the right frame of mind to do it. I think people sort of do all sorts of different times that they think, oh yeah, I'm going to give it a go, and they might just be, I don't know, on a train or something like that. I mean, I get the most random sort of ideas and I do things. I mean, I often spent a lot of time on trains, writing blog posts and things like that for this as well. So yeah, definitely. That's a lovely thing to say. Thank you to the person that said that.
Another question is, do you stay in contact with people who contribute?
I have with Robert, because I know him, and he found out about the site at I think it was at my degree show. I think I can't remember who found out about it, but he's someone who's friends with my husband, so that's that came about, and he's probably the only person I kind of know face to face, because it's private and because I don't have only if people want me to stay in touch. So if people put in their email address, I will let them know that I've got their contribution, and I will let them know when it's going to be published. But otherwise, no, I don't, because if people don't want to stay in touch, then they don't have to. Again, the form that appears and pops up, if you fill it in, there's no obligation to fill in the email address. The only thing that's obligatory is that you actually put some text into the text field, and you don't even have to attach an image. Actually, again, if you think, okay, I just want to put some text in, but I haven't got a feet photo, that's too much, I could just use a stock photo. You can put on the bottom, please use a stock photo. Job done. So
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, yes and no. If people want me to, then I will, but there's no newsletter. But people can stay in touch with me via the Facebook page. There's a Facebook page, a Twitter account, and an Instagram account for Walking Our Shoes as well.
Now, at one point tonight, you did talk about how community's been very important to you, yourself in your own journey, and finding your community really, really helped you to move on. I think one of the things that is fantastic about your website, and something that I hear a lot in the More to Life community, is the importance of that not feeling alone. And I think your website really puts that across, and that's why I tend to get lost in reading other people's stories, because it reminds, when you look at it, you see correlations with your own story in one, so you read that one a little bit more carefully, and then you think, oh, but that one's a bit different, and oh, I didn't think somebody could be childless that way, and it sort of, it opens up your mind, but it does give you that strong feeling that community is there for you, and I think that is a real strength.
Thank you. That's lovely to hear. I try and make sure with what we've got, 56 stories. So Jodie Day says there's like 50 ways not to be a mother. But when I've spoken to her recently, she's 75 or 100, or and it's growing and growing and growing, these reasons why you wouldn't be a parent. So 56 only covers a small part of it, and some of them are very similar stories, or similar circumstances rather. So I think there's an awful lot more out there. I think what's important with it is that it's not always a happy ending. We all know that, the Daily Mail kind of, media success story, woman has, however many, goes at IVF, woohoo, baby, or there's miracle children or something like that, and they're great to read sometimes, but once you've come to that bit where, for whatever reason, and it's not specifically an IVF, that IVF is just my journey. There's loads of other stories on the website, and they're all welcome. Is that it represents kind of a brutal and honest sort of truth, and some of it is hopeful. People have gone on to do amazing and other different things, and some people just simply are coping. And there's a couple on there where they've got two guys who work together. One had a child, one didn't, and it's been lovely to have men on there. Again, I absolutely love getting stories from everybody. Getting a story about male infertility is really moving. I know that's particularly hard to talk about. But also a lot of them reference other people in the community. So I'll have people who know me through, say, World Childless Week, but have looked at Walking Our Shoes, gone to World Childless Week. And for example, someone very recently had then gone on to see Michael Hughes and Dr. Robin Hadley and gone, oh, wow, I'm going to write something for Walking Our Shoes to thank them for the work that I had done. I was like, oh, that's just like weird. But, because I suppose we're all listed as champions, we all kind of know each other, then, or they probably think we all have tea together. I don't know. But, we do talk to each other, but not in the way that we share stories about anyone that's on Walking Our Shoes. Like, we don't do that. But it's kind of that whole thing of being a community and having that strength together. And I'm very, very grateful to the people, on this loads of people. I just recently have become acquainted with Sarah Lawrence from After the Storm, and that's been great too. More people that I've met, and we're doing all sorts of different things, and we all support each other. I'm very grateful to a lot of people for the things that they do, and that community, and having that support around people who do this work. As you must know, in your line of work, having someone that you can go to, look, this has been a really tough day. All of us who do blogging and all of us who do writing and stuff, we get bad days too. So we like to have our little backup system to say, like, actually, I've had this really story come in and I need some help with that. Then we've got people that we can talk to as well. So the community in lots of different ways means a big word, isn't it?
Now, you talked about Sarah Lawrence, Sarah, and After the Storm. Aren't you doing a webinar with her?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, we're doing lots of stuff.
Webinar? Yeah. When's that webinar? Because people might want to join that, and they might want to know how to register for it.
Yes, it's on Thursday, and there will be, because I probably haven't put it on Walking Our Shoes yet, but on the Walking Our Shoes blog, I will pop the details up for that too. And it's 7 o'clock.
It's on the World Childless Week website, isn't it?
Because
it's in the e-news, and I've put it on the More to Life website as well, but people can find the actual link to register for on the World Childless Week website. So that's one of the people that is in your community. Another thing that struck me when you were talking there was about not always having that happy ending, but it's quite nice, I think, that people, it can be the first step to realizing it's not a happy ending, but it's my ending, and coming to terms with it themselves about it being their reality and their life, even though they didn't get the wonderful fairy tale Daily Mail story, as you put it, but it's still there. It's their ending, and there's something very powerful about that, isn't there?
There is. Michael Hughes says, own it. And actually that kind of ties into, there's another comment that's popped up. Lovely to see the picture of the dog and the soft toys in the backgrounds of you both. I just want to share this, because I was talking to Heather about this before we started this, and this is, I'm going to go like that. Woo-hoo. Okay, so this actually comes from Michael Hughes. and his lovely wife. So his meaning. So every time I do something to do with walking our shoes, I sort of like, he's nearby. So he's actually called Michael, because I don't have any imagination when it comes to naming anything, but he's quite important there. And yeah, so that kind of forgotten where we were now.
We were saying about owning your own story.
Yeah, it's owning it. Yeah, Michael calls it owning it, and that was used an awful lot. I think in the last sort of year for all of us, really. And what's good with the community now is that actually people are starting to speak out more. So there's more resources. Jodie mentioned in something fairly recently that when she had first sort of realised that this was her narrative and her story, there was nothing out there to help her. Hence Gateway Women. And I think now there's more stuff going on, heaps more stuff going on. It's really hard to keep track of it all. But what I've done also on Walking, I should just put some resources down as well. So again, I'm happy to list anyone's resources. If they've got something, then just drop me a line as well. And I can add it to the site. So once people have submitted, it's not the end. They can stay in touch, and they can also go to the community resources as well and join some of the groups on Facebook or wherever they want to get some more help as well.
Well, Berenice, this has been really interesting. I'm just going to check that I haven't missed anybody's questions at all. I don't think so. It said they love to see a picture of your dog, and you've done that. Thank you so much for the presentation.
She gets all the votes.
Yeah, so I think we've answered most of the questions. Thank you so much for your time tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you in rehearsals and getting to know you as you do this. And so many people in the childless community will really enjoy going onto your website, having a look at the stories, looking at, I mean, I just love looking at the variety of shoes that are on there as well. I mean, that means...
get shoe envy. I get some quite bad shoe envy. I'm like, ooh.
Absolutely, and it gives it a sense of individuality as well, doesn't it? As you said, it's your own personal journey and your own preference for style of shoes, etc. And it gives it a lovely warmth and a lovely it just shows the uniqueness of every story, I think, and that's really nice and reassuring to know. I've just got a few things to do before